impossible to fake. A third sample, taken from within the same crop circle 6 weeks after its formation, shows that the original energy pattern of the corn is starting to reappear as the energy which created the circle gradually subsides.
We have found over the years that some people need to be satisfied that we are looking at a real phenomenon. Now, human trait as it is, clearly there have been circles created by man, and those are very easily discernible. We have a vast network of people now reporting these markings to us, and we follow them up quickly, primarily and initially by aerial surveillance.
Hi Steve. Hi Colin. Okay, so we start off Cheesefoot Head, a couple of orbits around there, then we'll head up north, up to Avebury, and then head back down. And you want to maybe have a look at Stonehenge on the way back?
Yes, that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a couple nearby just to the south.
Ever since I first became aware of the crop circle phenomenon, I have been working closely with local pilots who know this area very well indeed. And with their help, I have monitored and recorded the tremendous increase in crop formations from under 30 in 1983, 70 in 1987, reaching a staggering 500 in the summer of 1990. Not only the quantities have increased, the densities have now grown to as many as 30 in 10 acres of field, compared to 5 or so in a square mile just 4 years ago. The dimensions too have increased, ranging from 60 feet diameter circles in the early 80s to formations over 400 feet long in the last 2 years. The patterns from the air are awe-inspiring, tremendous graphic patterns of extreme and yet delicate beauty nestling in the landscape. Many would never have been spotted from the ground. Only in the air can the scale of the phenomenon be appreciated. The aircraft is invaluable for aerial surveillance and photography. Each circle has a fingerprint pattern which is recorded from the sky and entered into computer. We have seen a positive evolutionary period. Nobody now doubts that. Some did, particularly well-known scientists in this country, doubted the fact that we were looking at an evolutionary tendency in the patterning some years ago. That has now proven itself. We are now beyond that. These patterns are evolving at a very rapid rate. They're becoming so complex, so symbolic, so obvious that they cannot any longer be ignored. We don't have to learn whether it's an A, a B, a C or a D, or whether it means black or white. The meaning is automatic. The consciousness of man is being affected directly by the input of the pattern into the mind itself. Appreciation of nature is of paramount importance. Focus the attention of the people on the patterns and where they are occurring. Most important. The patterns themselves have more meaning than we will ever understand and probably will ever know. But whilst we're studying it, whilst the people are looking and thinking and wondering, the effect is underway. People are meeting, they are making friends, they're recognizing their place in nature and the place of the crop circle itself.
We had heard of crop circles. A neighbouring farm had had 2 simple circles, but we hadn't had any. We'd maybe read a little bit about them in the papers, but we certainly didn't know very much about them. And on the 12th of July, we were driving to Marlborough quite early in the morning, and we saw it. And stopped the car and went up on the hill, which overlooks it. By which time, of course, other members of the farm staff had seen it as well. And we were excited and didn't know what to do. And I remember that there were people that were investigating these circles. So we came back to the house and then started to try and report this thing. I rang various bodies. I rang the police, the Citizens Advice Bureau, ADAS, which is an agricultural advisory service, and nobody seemed to know what I was supposed to do about this. And then I rang MAF, the Ministry of Agriculture, and as luck would have it, the lady that answered the phone was herself interested in crop circles, and knew Colin Andrews' telephone number. She gave it to me. I telephoned him, and he came pretty well straight away, actually. He also then gave me other phone numbers, and we notified other experts. He came along and was extremely excited. He then told us that, as far as he knew, it was the most complex, sophisticated crop circle ever found in the world. The people who come seem really genuinely interested in the phenomena, fascinated by it. As for what they get out of it, we get all sorts of reactions. We do get, I think the most common reaction, and certainly the one that I feel as well, is these things seem to bring people together in a very happy way. Quite often there are lots of people in these circles, and there are groups of total strangers stood around having the most animated conversations they've never met in their lives. And it's all very friendly and happy, and it's almost a bit like a carnival sort of atmosphere. Or there's like a camaraderie amongst people. It seems to be anyway. But we have had people who've actually been physically sick, and we've had people who've not been able to go in.
I have been certainly criticised by some of the scientific fraternity and my engineering type colleagues for stating now quite categorically intelligence is involved, because the evidence is there for all of them to see. We were looking at, as we said earlier, some years ago, at simple single circles. We already had enough information in the first 3 years to prove they were locating themselves with respect to the fields and the topography in a very intelligent fashion. As the patterns became more complex, their referencing to the topography and indeed to man-made features was intelligent. We've seen them locating themselves to colour, something that has optical appreciation. And on occasions, and I've got to be careful here, that they appear to arrive in their whole being as almost requested. That is deep and profound, but if we really are looking at something that is responding and reacting to the psyche of man, then we're looking at a form of intelligence which we simply do not understand. We, I believe, are looking at an interface, the very point at which this dimension is affected by another dimension. There is a very deep spiritual content here. I fervently believe that nature locks us in to a scale of existence beyond which we cannot reach, and perhaps unfortunately never will quite be able to reach or see. It's the same analogy as the ant, and there are many of them all around us here which will not have a clue of our existence and our being. As large as we are, many thousands of times larger than that single ant, and yet it is locked into its own scale of existence beyond which it is incapable of seeing and understanding. And that's where we are too, locked in and living on a single molecule, one of thousands, if not millions, of molecules. We have no perception of what's going on beyond. We cannot see the giant's foot. We cannot see the cosmic finger which is drawing the pictures in the canvas fields of our planet. And perhaps we never will, but it has purpose. It must have purpose. And that's why we have to go on trying to understand. The quickest route is through sensitivity, learning more about nature. I'm sure of that. This is one of 4 circles sharing a common axis running right through all 4 of them. This is a 5-metre anti-clockwise circle, and only the second time we've ever seen this. This particular pattern has appeared only once before at Beulah in Australia, back there a few years ago. Precisely the same as this. Again, you can see the spiralling symmetry is really very pretty indeed. Here we've got a single plant of wheat around which this bindweed has wrapped itself, clearly quite some time ago and before the event, and the whole thing has collapsed, including, of course, the weed itself. And as you can see, the weed is not broken or scuffed or bruised in any way at all. It simply has been involved with the phenomenon, the energy that created this large marking.
I feel I know two things. I know they're not made by people. There might be hoax circles, but I think the majority of them are not made by people. And I know there's an energy there as well. So that's two things that I know. From then on, really, it's just what you feel. I feel strongly that these are not random, that they are deliberate. Whether they're coming from within the earth, whether they're tied in with ancient monuments, ley lines, and all the mysteries that we still have associated with the earth, or whether they're coming from without, from other intelligences, from a creator, from something out there somewhere. I don't know. I feel if it is a message, if people are trying to get through to us in some way and give us a message, I don't think they're sending us a message of congratulations. I don't feel we're being told, well done, humanity, you're doing a great job. I feel if this is a message, it's a message of doom, and it's a message of, if you don't get your act together, something big is going to happen.
In 1987, the very definitely scientific approach to my own particular research took quite a knock when I returned to a field at Kimpton, a small village in north central Hampshire, and I had forgotten to take a particular measurement earlier in the day. I returned alone and walked up into the ring. This was a ring and not a circle, a very unusual ring with 3 circles nearby in the adjacent field. I took my measurement and I walked totally unplanned into the standing green wheat, up to sort of waist height, and I placed my hands together, as I say, totally unplanned and very unusual for me. I guess I hadn't put my hands together and prayed since I left school, really. But I spontaneously, I put my hands together, and I said, in my mind, I prayed, I said, God, if you could only give me a clue as to what this is all about. This was 5 years. It was after 5 years then of sheer frustration in really not getting anywhere fast with the research. And absolutely, spontaneously, as if in response to that thought, was a very unusual noise. The noise was at very low level initially. It was electrostatic, crackling, buzzing sort of noise, very much like the European cricket, but many of them, buzzing all at the same time. And this was about 8 feet away from my standing position. It was very directional. I could look precisely from where it was coming from. There was nothing to be seen. But the levels of energy, the sound, increased tremendously to such a level that I came very close to panic. I really did. I looked around the field for my quickest route out and was really at that point, as you do when you are that frightened, very, very close to panicking and losing general control over myself, when the noise, which by this time, some 15 seconds perhaps later, at tremendous levels, I have not heard noises like that only from a laboratory with very high levels of voltage before you get a discharge. And it reached a tremendous pitch when suddenly it just stopped. It stopped as quickly as it had begun. But the effect that that had on me was extraordinarily profound. It changed my whole concept because I couldn't, once again, here we had something else, this time a noise, not the visual that I couldn't account for some years earlier. Now we had a sound, and which did appear to respond to my thoughts, and it too I couldn't begin to account for in terms of science and physics. That noise, I believe it was the first time it had been heard. I certainly shared it with my colleagues and lived with it for 2 years until other people also experienced it.
That's a terrible noise, just as you stand in the centre.
You're getting a noise there, Richard?
Very, very bad indeed.
Yeah, I can hear it here. I can feel it here.
This is our old friend back.
It is. Yeah. There, that's it.
I was coordinating the first and then the largest surveillance operation ever conducted into fringe phenomena of any kind anywhere in the world. It was called Operation White Crow 2 years ago, close to Winchester, looking into that natural amphitheatre called Cheesefoot Head, a location where crop circles have appeared certainly for sure almost pretty well every year for 12 years. Having said that, we haven't actually seen one of these this year, although we have now 91 formations in Wiltshire and this county of varying types. The surveillance didn't stop. It was running day and night, 24 hours a day. What happened there was also of great importance. At about 20 past midnight, on the very last night, running into the final hours of Operation White Crow, this very same noise, this buzzing, cricket-like noise, started, we could hear it initially at, again, a very low level, and it came in from the east across 2 fields, and it approached the circle in which we were in. It stopped for a brief moment, and all of us effectively looking at one another. I broke the ice because I recognized that noise. It was the one I'd heard at Kimpton, and I looked at one of my colleagues nearby and said, you know, can everybody else hear what I'm hearing? And they could all indeed. They were all thinking the same thing. Whatever is it? Well, the noise then, it moved from the point at which it becomes stationary and literally encircled the circle twice. It did it relatively quickly, and they were all adults, all grown people. We huddled together because the stereophonic effect was really quite frightening. There was obvious behaviour. That noise was demonstrating a behaviour. It knew what it was doing. It had approached the circle. It stopped. It encircled the circle twice. It then moved back 1 segment, approximately 1/4 of its rotation in the reverse, in the clockwise direction. It manoeuvred in all sorts of peculiar ways there, and ultimately finished up moving away in the direction from which it had arrived. And a short time later, at first light, that very morning, that same night, a police car containing 2 policemen from Hampshire Police here, they approached our surveillance point and asked us if we were aware of a new crop circle, a beautiful crop circle with a single annular ring around it, much like Saturn. And we didn't know of this new marking. We went back with them and we looked at the most staggering new arrival at the point from which that noise had come from and where it went back to. The patterns, some would say the signs, are becoming so intricate, so meaningful, something must be in a hurry. The whole phenomenon is on an exponential course. All scientists recognize a curve of that kind when they see it, and we're looking at a phenomenon which is now not only evolving in its patterning, we are looking at densities which are increasing. Many more circles appearing in small areas. We have fields as many as 30 in 10 acres of field. We're looking at the physical size of the formations increasing, some as large as 400 feet across. That's exponential. I'm absolutely sure in my own mind, as sure as I can be, that we have entered a phase where we have the last chance to live with Mother Planet. We know that she's gravely ill. and we also know that we, collectively we, are the cause of that illness. Her atmosphere is opening up at the poles and pulling back to the equatorial zones. Her water, her oils, her blood is being taken from her and polluting her lungs. Her lungs, in the form of her leaves on her trees, are dying and withering. Her waters are dropping away. Her rivers are drying up. That is undeniable. We know that exists, and that cannot continue. If that trend continues for very much longer, we won't have a planet, we will not have life. Life will have snuffed out, and what we will see, what others may see in the future, will be a barren climate, a barren planet like we see on our moon and in Mars and other planets nearby, where life may have existed at one time and has now ceased. We're entering that phase, and we can do something about it. We know we can do it collectively. We have a final opportunity to put things right. We have got to learn to harmonise. We have to learn our place in nature. Mother Planet is in serious trouble, and we can do something about it. I am, on the positive side, heartened, very heartened, by the political changes and the interest in the environment generally, and this comes almost as if overnight, like somebody has thrown a switch, and this is where I am sure the crop markings, the signs that have arrived on our planet are playing their part. The full phenomenon is yet to be seen. The full phenomenon, I do believe, will encompass all of the reports that we're receiving now. The grand finale will be a manifestation of a kind that no man will doubt. What's coming out of the noise, the golden star and the ground markings will be a manifestation of a physical kind that will, I hope, will unite all mankind in knowing and accepting